I've never liked the idea that after high school or directly in college, we have to have everything about every aspect of our life figured out. I'm Michael, and keeping everything simple, let's jump right in. To me, it was something that felt a lot like whiplash because suddenly we're asked this big question of what are we gonna do now? And importantly, personal development is still taking place during these new chapters and is even supercharged by the fact that these are new opportunities and new chances for us to really come into our own. Here are 3 ways you can look at your own personal development, and stay tuned because I'll be breaking down 3 anime characters that actually exemplify what exactly I'm talking about. One of the first things that becomes so important in personal development is motivation. Asking yourself the important question of what motivates you. And everybody has different motivations, and that's okay. If we're gonna break it down into simple terms, we have 2 different versions of motivation. We have extrinsic and intrinsic motivation, and we'll jump into what those mean. Extrinsic motivation is motivation that is derived from external factors, whether that is reward or consequence. 2 pretty simple examples of this are the external reward of maybe a cash prize for winning the competition, or the external consequence of being grounded if you break rules. Now, the other side of the coin here is intrinsic motivation. This is motivation that is derived from internal factors such as self-satisfaction or self-fulfillment. And the reason this is the other side of the coin is because this one is separate from external rewards and consequences. And what makes this so important is this gives you the opportunity to ask yourself, what is important to you? What is motivating you? Is it getting the A in that class? Is it the challenge of building a new skill? Is it the satisfaction of building something new? Now, obviously, I have my own internal and external motivations, and a balance is always super important for anything that we do. Balance is super important no matter how you look at it. You need to have a good balance of internal and external motivation. I readily admit, and it's a little bit geeky, Shoyo Hinata from the anime Haikyuu was actually one of the characters that really exemplified this for me back in high school. I mean, comparatively, you have a midget in terms of volleyball whose biggest ability is at first just his jump. But with the internal motivation to be one of the best volleyball players, and then the external motivation of having to overcome one obstacle after another on the way to nationals, his character makes it really easy to see how that balance plays out. For him, not only did he want to improve, not only did he want the satisfaction and the challenge of being the best, he had to first overcome working with Kageyama, then he had to overcome Tsukushima, Oikawa, Ushiwaka, and it just continued on. And as he went throughout the show, you could see it came back down to his core motivations. And that leads us into asking, what is your why behind your motivation? I mean, I'm probably not the only one that asks myself, why am I taking this class? What's the meaning of this? Why is this important? And how is this gonna help me later in life? For those of us in high school and college, there's no doubt you have had those moments plenty throughout the years. And that's good, getting to bring it back to the idea and the core principle of the why. And for me, a great example of this is everybody's favorite piece of broccoli.
Okay, young Midoriya is here.
Izuku Midoryia from My Hero Academia is actually a fantastic example of knowing what's your why. Once you get past all the crying and sniffling and all that, then it's there, trust me. If you read the manga or watch the anime, it's pretty simple to ask yourself and see the answer of why does he do what he does, what motivates him, and what's the purpose behind all of his actions. Your why should be something that you can speak to openly and clearly. It's a core principle that defines a lot of what you do and the reasons behind it. But I also want to stress that it's not the end-all be-all. And I'll explain what I mean in a second. Deku's first and primary why, the thing that drives him to do his best and to be a hero, is simply that he wants to help and save people, like his hero All Might. It's simple, it's straightforward, and it's really hard to miss. But what I mean by it not being the end-all be-all is there are other supporting factors that we all have throughout our lives and throughout our personalities that lend themselves to our primary motivation, our primary why. For Deku, he wants to be strong and he wants to be the #1 hero in the future. While this is still part of the primary reason behind why he does what he does, as you can see throughout the anime and throughout the manga, it progresses and you can see a bit more clearly how it's defined as a supporting reason and a supporting why factor. And during one of his fights with Bakugo, it's shown pretty well when he even admits it himself. When his desire to beat the opponent in front of him becomes stronger than his desire to save, he begins to act out more rashly and more aggressively as he tries to do his best. Plus, it makes him a little bit more spicy. Your own personal why should be foundational and a primary guiding principle. However, that doesn't mean you won't have supporting factors that also help it out, because you are not a one-dimensional individual, and you are always going to be constantly growing and changing as you go throughout different chapters in your life. And thankfully the changes come without eating someone else's hair, because comment down below if there's a series or if there's a character from anime or in general that inspires you, and let me know why. Deku would be a great example of the third function of personal development as well, but instead I'm going to look at Loid Forager from Spy X Family. So, new anime that came out, obviously wasn't out when I was in high school, but he's a fantastic example of a character who not only spends so much time learning, but planning out his next moves as well as taking action to have the maximum benefit possible. Okay, so I would have used code GIOS, however, please don't hate me, I haven't actually seen it. I know the main character is hailed as a masterclass strategist, but I haven't seen it, so I'm gonna have to go with one I know. In high school and in college, you're already spending so much time learning and practicing new things that the idea of making a plan and implementing it so that way your next steps are of most benefit to you, I believe comes naturally as we go. And because it ties together of asking yourself, why is this important and will this help me out later in life? One of the best ways you can figure this out is to actively try it out. And so creating a plan to try out something, whether this be a topic you read about in a book, whether this be a lesson you learned about in class or something you heard in a presentation, it's great to have a plan and from there implement it and see what happens. One of the important things, and this is especially shown in Spy X Family with Loid, is adapting as needed, knowing that your plan, no matter how much you actively go through the steps, it can go off the rails pretty quickly. It's up to you to adapt and to make the final result something that you wanted. Now, admittedly, high school and college can be about as stressful as it gets. Almost like Sanji's level of stress when he's trying to lock the fridge so Luffy doesn't actually get in there and eat all of his food. So with stress, I actually talked about eustress in a different video, which is the idea of positive levels of stress. So feel free to check that one out and dive into a little bit more of how you can blend eustress together with your personal development. And so for all the characters earlier, so like Shoyo, Hinata, Izuku Midoryia, Loid Forager, they're all in continually stressful situations. However, they're always taking these times and these moments to develop themselves, to turn these stressful situations into assets and into character development and personal progress. And with personal development and progress, I'll be diving into how mindfulness actually helped me land my first 9-to-5 job, as well as promote to an assistant store director within 1 year in my next video. So subscribe to stay tuned for that video. Hit the like button if you found this video fun and informative. Follow me on Instagram at KES Studios if you haven't already. And keeping everything simple, I'll see you in the next video.